We're going to talk about user-defined functions or UDFs, and this is just an overview first of all so you know the difference between a stored procedure and a function. Is that a function always returns a value. Now there are built-in functions as part of DB2, for example sum, avg, digits, etc., and you can create UDFs in different languages in SQL, PL, in C, C++, Java, etc., but we are focusing on SQL, PL in the same way that we focus on SQL, PL when we are using the stored procedures because it's very easy to learn SQL, PL. There are different types of functions. A scalar function means that there will be only one value returned, and when you use a scalar function, you cannot change the data state as part of logic within the scalar function. For example, you cannot issue an insert, update, or delete statement as part of the function. There are couple of functions that a subs tr, those are built-in functions as well. They come with the product, but I will show you later on another scalar function. They don't return one single value, but they return an entire table, and because they return an entire table, when I call this function, they will have to be called in the from clause of a query. And the nice thing is that with these functions, I can change a database state because I can issue, insert, update, or delete statement. And here we have some examples, and these are also built-in table functions, and we have also row functions and column functions, which will not be covered in this e-learning series. So let's move on to the next section and talk about scalar functions. So this is an example of one scalar function where basically the name of the function is dev name, department name, and we are using as parameter the employee ID. Okay, then if we take a look at the logic returns varchar 30, this says specific unique name for the function, and then we have begin, atomic, end, right? So this is like in online SQL, PL part, and from here we declare some variables. We set the values for some of these, and basically what we are doing here is, you see, we are setting v department name to a select statement where we are joining the department and employee tables in this part of the sample database. We are joining them based on the work type and depth, no columns, and also we are saying that we want only for employee number equals PM ID, and you can see here that the parameter name was PMID. So basically we are using the parameter to limit the number of rows that we will get back after we join these two tables. And what we are trying to do here basically is pass me the employee ID of any employee, and then we return to you that the department name of that employee ID, right? Now if you take a look at the department and employee table, the employee table has an employee ID, but it does not have the department name. What it has is the department number. And then in the department table, we have a department number and also a department name. So basically what we need to do is to the join based on the department number in order to get that department name. Alright, so that's the purpose of this function. And here we have the statement called signal, which is used to raise an exception. So for example, in this case, if this department name is null, so you now I try to retrieve the department name, but this select statement returns null because for some reason you provide maybe an incorrect employee ID, and therefore the return for the department name is null. Then I'm going to raise exception. An exception is part of the function, so the function itself will return a value with an incorrect error, and this error v-error is defined here where it has v-error employee, etc., has no found. So let's run the function, and there are two ways to create the function. The first way, as you can see from here, is to simply, and that's the same function, I just put it again in notepad because it's just easier to copy and paste. Copy paste the function from the command editor as shown here. So let me down it from here first, and when I execute this, and I'm going to have it to terminate with the @ symbol, and I have to make sure that the at symbol is used as a terminator as well, and execute, right? So as you can see, the function was created successfully. Let me clear the result here. Let me clear the information here, and then I'm going to say I'm going to call the function. So it's determined. So basically, to call a function, you can use values like this, dep name, and then you can put an employee ID, right? Value dep name, and these are employee ID from the employee table, and I'm going to execute, and then I get these results back. Okay, let me open the control center, so that you can see the tables that I'm using in this example. Now you may be wondering why I did not put at symbol. The reason for that is when you just execute one statement, there is no need to put a terminator. If you have several statements like another select, then you do need to put terminator on each parameter, on each statement. Okay, so let's take a look at the center, and from here let's look at the sample database. We are going to look at the employee table and department table. So employee table, if I double click, I get some sample information, and this is the employee ID, right? So this is the employee ID that was using, and let me just enlarge this window. So here is the work department number, but I don't have the department name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this work department number, then I will be going to the department table, and what the parameter is doing, it will find the department number, which happens to be the first one, and it will return the department name, which in this case is SPIFI Computer Services. Okay, so that's the reason why we got the same SPIFI Computer Services. So I showed you one way to invoke the function which was using dep name, which was using values, but you can also invoke this by issuing a select statement. So you can say select dep name from, and here you can put any table. So for example, I can say from employee. Now the problem of this, okay, let's execute this to see the problem with this is that I get the same value returned, in this case 42 times, because here 42 records in the employee table, so the per row in the table, right? So if you don't want this to happen, you can create a dummy table yourself with only one row and one column, or you can use the table sysIBM.sysdummy1, which is table from the system, but it was basically created. So that is basically a table with one row and one column, and was created for this purpose, where you know you just need to get one return back within the function. So if I execute this now, I just get one record back. Okay, so and you can use these functions within your stored procedures. So you have the stored procedures, you can invoke the function, and or you can call them directly from your applications within a SQL statement or using the value. Okay, so this is the first way to create a function, which is by using the command editor. Okay, let's move on. Invoke a scalar function, and one way was to use select, invoking the function and using the sysIBM or sysdummy1 or any table, but it will be repeated according to the number of rows in that table, or you can use values statement as with this. Alright, so let's move on to the next section of this presentation, which is a table function. So a table function, as the name says, it will return a table. It's not going to return just a single value but an entire table. Therefore, when you invoke this function, you have invoked it from the from clause of a query. So if you are doing a select, you don't put it as a column as you are doing for the scalar function, but you put it on the from clause, and from here you can perform insert, update, and delete operation as part of the logic of the function. Okay, so let's take a look at this example. In this example, we have a function called get enum employee, and we are passing a department number, and what will return is what is shown in returning a table with 3 columns. Now if you take a look at the code, it is basically doing a select statement of the same 3 columns, but we are limiting the number of rows that we are retaining based on this parameter p dep, which is what is passed here as a parameter. So we are passing a parameter p dep and we are using it to filter or narrow the rows that will be returned. Alright, so again I have here in Notepad, copy paste that function because it's just for me to save some time and easier to copy paste. Let's go back to the command editor. Let's clear the results here and we need to put at symbol at the end. Make sure that is put in there and make sure that you have the at symbol as well here, and then we are going to execute the function, or the creation of the function was created successfully. Now what we need to do is we need to execute, or we want to invoke this function that we just created. So to that we can use syntax like this. So let me delete all of this. So in this syntax, which is also shown here in the next slide, you invoke again a table function after the from clause. So here is the from clause, and after the from clause we are invoking the get enum employee, but we need to add this special function called table, and we need also to add an alias. So basically, if you look at this is like saying select asterisk from t, but t is basically an alias to a table which is based on the function get enum employee which we just created. So let's invoke that function. So let's run this and see what we get, and in this case what we get is one record, which is the one that you see here. So for this example, sorry, for this department number, we are getting this information for the employee. Okay, that was the purpose of this function.